Okay. Well, I cut the intro short because I was ready. I'm going to pull this camera here close to me. I hope that that's a good view. So, happy Sunday. And if you're watching this stream, I congratulate you, although you probably should be outside pulling some weeds or going to the river or something like that. Really quickly, I'm going to jump on my personal Facebook and I'm going to start a watch party because, well, I don't know if I can. Let's see if I can. How would I do that? So, anyway, I'm jumping into your feed today. Let's see if I can go. Is it showing? There it is. There it is. Let's see if I can go. Nah, they won't let me share. Okay. So anyway, I don't have anything to share. I just wanted to share some personal details of mine. So about the last month, I think my gain is too high. Hang on. So about the last month, I've been laid up on my couch. Had probably the worst lower back issues that I've had in my life. I've had other back issues that have laid me down for as long up in my upper back. But this is the first time my lower back had given me such an issue that I had to lay down for, it was about 3.5 weeks. I had to go to urgent care. I was not going to go to the hospital. I had to go to urgent care to get a shot. So I guess I should give details. So what ended up happening was July 9th, it was a Thursday, I had been sitting here in this very chair from about 7 a.m. to about 11:30 a.m. that day, and I was doing a bunch of work. I work right here too, so you're in my workspace. I was doing a bunch of work that morning, both for my employer and also for my school. I'm enrolled in online school right now. So I had to sit here and I did a bunch of work for about 4.5 hours straight. And I got up and I just went to the kitchen to go get something to drink or go get a bite to eat. And my back just seized up. I wasn't able to walk normally. And actually by the end of the night, I was crawling on all fours, trying to shut the lights off and grab a glass of water and all sorts of stuff. So that's why over the last month, you've not seen me stream, because I couldn't even sit. I couldn't even sit right here in this chair. But there was a couple weekends ago where my buddy Sean came down and streamed with me. So I sucked it up for that one. I was on medication during that. And if you look at that, if you look at any of those streams of me and Sean, you'll notice that I was leaning back in my chair, and I was trying to adjust because I was uncomfortable. To be honest with you, I'm a little uncomfortable right now, but not as bad as I was then. So anyway, just this morning, I finally woke up and stood up from my bed, and I didn't have any pain. So I just kind of want to share my personal details. Not that it matters to you. Wherever you found me, you could have found me anywhere: Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm streaming on all five of those services, and I'm going to add to that soon enough. So, so yeah, that's where I was. That's where I've been. And so, if you have me on Instagram, you'll see that I've been posting some things on Instagram. I try to do my best to record videos that I see and upload them to my own page, and then give credit to the original creators. And and if you have me on my personal Facebook, you've already been subjected to all of my opinions, which I don't apologize for, by the way. So I definitely wanted to get in here and let y'all know what was going on with me. I'm not happy about the mask mandates. If it wasn't compulsory, then I'd probably be more inclined to wear it. But before my back injury, before July 9th, maybe 2 weeks before that, there was an occasion where I had to go to the um, FedEx office here in town to ship something to one of my accounts. And I took a mask with me. I wore it on the back of my head because I don't think if I'm not coughing, sneezing, or talking, then what's the purpose of covering my holes? So I wore it on the back of my head. I walked in. The young lady at the counter was like, "Sir, you need to wear that properly." And so I switched it around, put it on the front of my face, but I didn't fasten the top strap. So it was leaning forward. It was hanging off of my face. And she was like, "Sir, you need to wear your mask properly at all times while you're in the store." And I'm like, "I'm wearing my mask." And so I just like put my hand on it, made the seal. I made the transaction. I shipped whatever I needed to ship, and I left the store. I didn't cause a scene. I'm not one of those people. Um, but I left the store very unhappy. I thought that the employee who in front of me had morphed into the mask police. Um, it doesn't feel right to me. It's a government mandate, which businesses are needing to protect themselves from future liability. Um, so I get it. That's why they're wanting their customers to wear masks. So, anyways, I'm not with the mask movement. I'm not with the lockdowns. I think all this stuff is. I think it's all political. I really do. I'm not saying the virus is fake. Obviously, the virus is real. I'm not saying the disease that results from the virus is fake, because obviously the disease that results from the virus is real. So my issue is that they have taken individual responsibility out of the equation, and so because of that, I have withdrawn from going out into the world. Um, Now, some people out there would be like, "Wesley, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't. That's not something you do." Well, guess what? I think masks and social distancing is ridiculous. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions, and certainly everybody is entitled to do whatever they think is best for themselves. And I don't think it's a good idea for me to be in the middle of a bunch of mask wearers if I'm not wearing a mask properly, or not wearing one at all. Just setting myself up for some issues. I'll be the next famous video on Facebook. So I've withdrawn from them, and so I've been home for maybe 5 weeks. In the middle of that 5 weeks, I did have to go to urgent care. I did wear a mask because you're not getting into urgent care without wearing a mask. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. Also, it's a medical environment. It's supposed to be a sterile environment. Understand that a lot of people end up getting sick from other things while they're in a medical environment that they didn't originally come in with. So to me, masking and social distancing is a different thing when we're at urgent care or the hospital versus FedEx office. So, so of course, I'm going to wear a mask if I need to go in and get a steroid shot or an anti-inflammatory shot or anything like that. And that's what I did. So when I say that I've withdrawn from society in the last 5 weeks and I haven't gone anywhere, I've gone twice. I've gone to urgent care And I've also gone to physical therapy. Yes, physical therapy. Um, so I am a 37-year-old male who graduated, or I should say, certified yoga instructor training last February, February 2019. I think I know how to move my body, right? So it's not really about that when it comes to physical therapy. Like I walk in and they're having me do these side crunchies and like, activating my core all the way, the front and the sides, the obliques, and they're having me do these weird things. And so, anyways, I withdrew from that. I was like, well, I think if you're gonna have me doing little small crunchies with a Bosu ball, I think I can do that. I think I can do that on my own. So I have left my house. I have gone to other places, but I have back problems of somebody who's twice my age. So that's exactly why I need yoga. That's why I need the gym, and that sort of thing. So I also like to shout out to a friend on Facebook. I hope you catch this. There was a post of his maybe a month ago or maybe 2 months ago that asked, if you're over 30, should you be wearing a backwards hat? That was an actual question on Facebook. That was a post of his. So I'm over 30 and I'm wearing a backwards hat right now. And actually, if we can give a little shout out, this is shout out to the Heavenly Hill Distillery out in Kentucky, where me and a handful of friends went for another friend's bachelor party, and we went on the bourbon trails out there. So it's a lot like going wine tasting out here in Napa. Out there in Kentucky, we went bourbon tasting. And I'm not a drinker. If you've got me on Facebook, you know that I'm not a drinker. So so that was quite the experience for me. But so shout out to Heavenly Hill Distilleries. Also shout out to the friend on Facebook of mine that does not like 30-year-old dudes wearing backwards hats. Boom. I don't care about your opinion. And I think that's really like the majority of what the topic of today is. Ever since COVID-19, I've gotten a lot more political in my posts on Facebook. And I mean, listen, let's back it up. If you've known me, like say you're a family member of mine, you've known me since I was a child, this is no surprise to you. None of this is a surprise to you, right? As a matter of fact, you're probably laughing, right? Because ever since I was a kid, even when I couldn't speak, I didn't take any shit from any adults. The only way that you could actually do anything to me when I was a child was be physically stronger than me and beat my butt, like spankings and shit. That's the only way you can get one up on me when I was a kid. Otherwise, there was no control in me. And then as I started growing up, those friends of mine out there in cyberspace who have known me since like daycare, since like 5 years old, since Park Lake, right there off of Combi Road. And then a little bit beyond that, the friends that I met at Forest Lake, a little bit beyond that, friends that I met at Cottage Hill, a little beyond that, the friends that I met at Pleasant Ridge, and the ones that I met at Magnolia and then at Bear River High School. None of this stuff is surprising to you. None of it. Okay. None of my opinions are surprising to you. You may not like them, but or you do like them, but you're like, that's Wesley. That's the Wesley I know. But anybody who did not grow up with me, and especially anybody who wasn't with me during my wilder periods in my early and mid 20s, you just don't have a good perspective of who I am and what kind of opinions I have. So, and that's okay. I mean, I don't care. I wish that I could befriend everybody, and I wish that I could carry these friendships into the future. But if those people don't feel like being your friend, then it's not anybody's job. It's certainly not my job to go and track these people down. So what I was getting at is that this year I've become a lot more and it's crazy to say a lot more, opinionated, politically opinionated. Whereas maybe there was a year gap. Like I didn't post very much through 2019. As a matter of fact, I had this conversation with a work friend of mine, and she asked me, "Where have you been on Facebook? I like your Facebook posts, and you haven't been very active." And I told her, "Listen, you know, I felt like holding my opinions to myself and hoping that people would start to do things for themselves, think for themselves, research for themselves, um, and what she told me was, no, I think your opinion is important, um, and you need to make sure that, and I mean, from her point of view, she thinks that she needs to tell me I need to make sure that I post." And I started thinking about it, and I thought that she was right. I think back in 2011, 2012, 2013, I used to post a lot about everything, about the monetary system, police brutality, um, the Agenda 21, and the Georgia Guidestones. I was deep, deep, deep in the conspiracy rabbit hole back then. And I'll tell you, I haven't fully climbed out of it, to be honest with you. Um, I don't know, the way things are kind of shaping up right now is almost resembling what all of us were talking about, 7, 8 years ago. So, anyways, I say all that because there was a gap in time in 2019 where I wasn't posting very much at all. I just didn't really feel motivated about it. And then all of a sudden, COVID happens. I talked to that work friend of mine, and the government starts doing some weird stuff, right? In my point of view. Uh, Now, this morning, what I realized when I was going through, I do what everybody else does. I wake up and check my notifications. When I was on Facebook scrolling through, Facebook suggests friends. Well, there's like a handful of friends that Facebook is now suggesting to me that I've already been friends with. We've already confirmed friendships and that sort of thing over the last year or two. And now these people are up for suggestions again. And so it's clear that these people have removed me as a friend on Facebook, which is fine. So what I want to say is that doesn't bother me, right? And then what I want to say on top of that is, Wesley, in fact, if that's true, that it doesn't bother you, then why are you talking about it now? And that's a valid question, right? It doesn't bother me. It doesn't agitate me. It doesn't make me angry. But it does bother me it affects me, and I'll tell you how. Because these people have, especially the ones that I'm thinking of, they met me in person, and they know how I am in person, right? And based on what they see in the electronic universe, they don't want to be electronically connected to me, and that's fine. I mean, that's their life; they're allowed to do that. But that tells me that the electronic communications that they're receiving are more powerful than our in-person connections. And I guess that's what bothers me, because I've seen a number of people drop me as a friend. It's really interesting about that. 7, 8 years ago, I was doing a lot of truther posts, and I lost a lot of friends back then too. But since, I've had a lot of friends come back on board. Some people who had unfriended me 7 years ago have refriended me, so I don't quite understand what it's all about, what that's all about. But I just think it's an interesting thing, right? And I realize that, like, right now we don't have any in-person contacts, so. Like, at least for me anyway, I have a friend out there in Facebook land who has recently posted about taking this seriously. And when I mean this, I mean the coronavirus, taking the coronavirus seriously, right? I'm not sure if anybody else can take it more serious than I've taken it. Ever since the initial flatten the curve stuff. Anytime I'm anywhere near anybody, whether I'm wearing a mask or not, I make sure that we have some separation between us. And it's not that I'm afraid of getting the virus. Like, I would get the virus if you'll come over here and give it to me. I'd be happy to get it. And you might call that dumb, but I call that's individualism, right? Like, I'm an individual. I'm allowed to decide what comes into my body and what doesn't. If there's a switch to flip, I don't mean that, like, you know, when I walk outside and I breathe the air, if there's any pollution in that air, I should have a say on. No, not necessarily. What I mean is, like, if I'm going to get a virus, I should be the one that decides whether I get it or not. And I'm especially concerned because I've got some time in November 18th to the 28th, where I've set aside, and I already bought a 10-day package at Wonderland Healing Center that's in Thailand. It's one of my favorite places to be. And if they make us prove our antibodies before we travel internationally, then if I don't get this virus, they're going to want me to get a vaccine. And that's a problem. That's a problem in my world. I've been vaccinated before. I'm not saying I haven't. I've been vaccinated as a child. I was vaccinated in the Marine Corps when I worked for the government. And boy, do they give you all sorts of vaccines. I specifically remember the peanut butter one. It's not a vaccine for peanut butter. It's a vaccine that feels like peanut butter in your hip. They take this big old long needle and, like, basically throw you up against the wall. I mean, they don't throw you. You stand in a line. You got to put your hands against the wall. But then they like make sure you're not moving and shit. And they jab this needle into you. And then you got this bulk of stuff underneath your skin. And it feels like peanut butter when you touch it. So anyway, anybody that's been in the military, that's been vaccinated by the military, knows exactly what I mean. So I've been vaccinated before. I'm not afraid of vaccines. I'm not afraid of this vaccine necessarily. I think after 7 years or so of using it, I'd be more inclined to get it voluntarily. Any vaccine that they cut corners on, any vaccine that I don't do a double-blind placebo on, anything like that, I'm a little skeptical of. So, and honestly, let's say they skipped all the, they cut all the corners and they didn't do any double-blind studies and that sort of thing, and they just rushed out and presented a vaccine. Like, I'm not too worried about that physical vaccine. I'd be more worried about it for somebody who's a young person. Just the same way we worry about people who get coronavirus. Super duper young, they've got a compromised immune system, and then the super duper old or anybody else that's got underlying health conditions, right? Those are the people that I would worry about getting a vaccine. Myself, I don't think I'm going to die. I don't think I'm going to get hives, or, I mean, who knows, right? Anything can happen. But no, I don't think the vaccine is going to hurt me. But I think it could hurt a lot of other people. And so without the safety done, especially on the previous vaccine, I mean, this is a new vaccine. We're talking about previous vaccines. They haven't even done double-blind placebo studies on whether or not these are harmful. I mean, they've done the studies on whether or not they produce the intended result, but have they done the studies on whether or not these vaccines have produced an unintended result? And though they haven't done those. So even just the past vaccines, those ones make me nervous for other people, not necessarily for myself. Like, obviously I've had them, my most recent vaccine was a tetanus shot, and I hear that there's some shit in the tetanus shot that can screw you up. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not afraid of the physical vaccine. I'm not afraid of the actual serum they injected me. I'm afraid of the serum for other people, for younger people and for older people. But I'll tell you what I'm really afraid of is Not the physical vaccine, but the mandate behind a vaccine. That's what I'm afraid of, because that can morph into anything. And so for anybody out there who says, oh, the slippery slope argument is not valid. Well, in my world, it is valid. Especially if you take a look at our government, right? It's just a tough world to live in, right? Because we want everybody to be healthy, right? We don't want to contract a virus or a disease that kills a bunch of people, obviously. But at the same time, we don't need a small group of people, politicians, who we know have lied to. I mean, almost every one of them, especially the ones that you see on TV, and I don't care if they're from the right or the left, they have lied to us. And if you don't believe me, I mean, all you have to do is dive into any one of them. Look at their campaign promises, right? Every single politician has some campaign promise. And almost zero actually fulfill. Now, I will say there's one politician in office right now that's fulfilling a lot of different campaign promises, but I'm not going to say his name. And you know who it is. I know who it is. You know who it is. We all know who it is. There is one politician in office who's not a politician, but is in office right now and fulfilling on campaign promises. We can't say that same thing about other politicians, real politicians that are in their positions. So when we start talking about a slippery slope argument and we say, oh, the government, oh, this is just for this year. This is just for this virus. This is just for this disease. Guys, listen, let me draw your attention to 9/11. 9/11, where, obviously we all know what happened on 9/11, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, the plane that went down in Pennsylvania. The story that they gave us was that all of these people had taken over planes with box cutters. Okay. So, I mean, unless they show me evidence that the box cutters were hidden in the soles of their shoes, then I have to ask, why are we still taking shoes off when we're at the airport? Right? Think about that. We know that there's been like an underwear bomber, and we know that there's been like a shoe bomber, right? But those were always after the fact. Those weren't before 2011. Okay, those were always after 2011. And yet, if you aren't part of TSA PreCheck, or if you don't have some sort of higher level security clearance, if you're like me, who's just a plebe, and you don't feel like signing up for TSA PreCheck, you got to take off your shoes when you're going through security checkpoint. So, but that all happened after 9/11. So did the 9/11 hijackers, did they pull these blades out of their shoes? I'd have to see some evidence of that for me to think that leaving my shoes, taking my shoes off in security was a good idea, So that's just kind of where I'm coming from, right? The government's like, we need to make sure that we vaccinate everybody with this vaccine that we, by the way, signed an agreement for in December. And we cut all the corners and hopped a couple of steps, and bam, we're ready to distribute billions of these worldwide. And then every year after year from 2020, everybody's going to get a coronavirus vaccine. It's at least all the little ones. I mean, I don't know about the adults, but at least all the little ones, and the adults that want to travel like me, they're going to have to get it. So this is kind of just kind of me thinking about what's all happening in the world right now. Like, we've taken healthy people. Okay, I'm generally a healthy person. I mean, I know I eat a lot of candy, a lot of shit. Like, if you ask my friends who hang out with me, if you ask my family, I'll eat a lot of sugar. I mean, I will tear up some sugar. All right, we're talking Kit Kats, Oreos, Starburst, Sweet Tarts, Ropes. Those are some of my favorite candies, man. I got a problem. I've got my grandma's sweet tooth. Um, so, but other than that, I'm generally a healthy person, especially prior to COVID. I was going to the gym or the yoga studio or both on a daily basis. Sauna almost every day, an hour of yoga almost every day, and I was eating almost exclusively like broccoli and ground turkey and that sort of thing, and then I'd go to the store and get some candy. But generally pretty healthy, right? Well, at least my body was. At least my body wasn't failing me. So fast forward, I was still out in the field doing my normal job during February. It was March when they finally locked us down. So I think it was like March 12th or something like that. So like March 12th. So we fast forward from March 12th to July 9th from when I hurt my back. So March, April, May, June, July. That's 4 months. 4 months of being at home and working at a computer, sitting in this very chair, hunched over a computer, either writing emails or reports or whatever I was doing, or doing academic stuff. 4 months is all it took for my lower back to take me out the game. So if my body is doing this to me, and I'm generally healthy, what is the rest of America like? That's something that we don't hear about much. I would venture to guess that there's a large swath of people out there who are disintegrating. I don't mean like literally, but I mean like their health status is disintegrating. I know mine did. I put on like 25 pounds. Did I? Is it 25? I mean, when I was at the doctor's office, I weighed like 112. And before I was like 180, 183. So what is that? That's 30 pounds, dude. I mean, that's exactly the amount of weight that I lost back in 2012, 2013 when I was with Herbalife and I was a health coach. So 30 pounds is a lot of weight to put on, man. And then you put that weight on and then you sit down in a chair and you don't go anywhere. There's no gym to go do some, weighted squats at. Of course, you could always do air squats. There's no yoga studio to go and, do a couple of lunges at. Of course, you could do a couple of lunges here at home. Of course you can. But here's the thing, guys. We are social beings. We're social. We need other people. If as adults, if we don't have a community of people to, first of all, measure ourselves against, second of all, to sharpen ourselves against, steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron, right? And if we don't have these physical connections in reality, then a lot of people, especially mentally strong and physically strong people like myself, lose their way. And so I'm evolving. I've gone through kind of the dark time of my physical body. I'm on the upper trend now, thank goodness, trending upwards. So I'm going to take my health into my own hands, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to disassociate from the social communities until this shit is over with. Because the social communities that I'm involved with are people who are very, very caring. Because that's the type of person I am. But these social communities are the types of people who are going to wear masks exclusively. And for whatever reason, I've been trying to find a reason why. For whatever reason, it's not a circle of people I want to be around. Okay? Somebody who looks at me and goes, you might get me sick without a mask. Guys, I've been at home for 5 weeks except for 2 occasions. Okay, and prior to that, I think I left the house maybe once a week. I don't have the fucking virus. Okay, I've been tested for it twice, just because I had the ability to one time, and the other time I had a friend who was doing testing. He's like, "Yeah, you want to get tested?" I was like, "Sure." I've not once this year felt nauseous, felt like I had a fever. I didn't feel feverish. I haven't had a sneeze that wasn't that wasn't brought on by my cats. Haven't had a headache. The only thing that hurt this entire year was my lower back, and that took me out. So much so that I was crawling around on my hands and knees. So what I'm saying is that a circle of people who are all going to wear masks around me, I understand why they're doing it. But for those type of people to not understand why I don't wear one, doesn't make me want to be a part of the circle. Okay. So, the type of people who don't complain to government when government shuts down our social activities, and yet hold a social activity. Do you see what I mean? The type of people who complain to who won't complain to government because government shut down our social activities, but also have and create a social gathering. That's the hypocrisy that I'm talking about. Okay? It's very difficult for me to be around a bunch of people who say, we need to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that this doesn't happen. Okay. And then these people do Z on their own. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay. And as soon as you've become inconsistent in my eyes, I have to withdraw. I've got to just back it up a little bit, because I'm the type of person who will get really frustrated, and I will tell you how I feel to your face, unapologetically. I don't care. I don't care how this video makes you feel. I don't care how my past videos makes you feel. You know what I care about is I care that the people that I interact with, especially in person, I care that I at least show some respect, and be respectful of people. But in the middle of me sharing an opinion, a lot of that kind of goes out the window. So I definitely don't want to be in the middle of a circle of people who are mask wearers, but then are also at a gathering of 10 people or more. So I'm all about consistency. Always been about consistency. As a matter of fact, you can ask the last chick that I actually officially dated. You can ask her how consistent I am. As soon as I realized that she was still involved with her bye. It's simple to me. Simple as simple. So anyway, that's how I feel about coronavirus. If you're just joining me, I don't see any new viewers. I'm not very popular, I'll be honest, and I don't care. But if you're just joining me and you're curious, or you care about how I feel about coronavirus and the mask and that sort of thing, or maybe if you're interested in learning about my back injury, go back to the beginning of the video and watch it. Some other interesting things that we've seen over the last month or so is the Jeffrey Epstein files have been unsealed and released. We've seen Prince Andrew has been fingered by one of the victims. Thank goodness the victim's doing the fingering this time. Bill Clinton has also been fingered by one of the victims. You know who was not? Who was not fingered by one of the victims in this packet of files was your current president. So, listen. You can be angry with me all you want about that statement, but it's true, right? The victim said your current president was not involved. That doesn't mean that he's not involved in other places. I'm just saying that in this packet of documents, he was not implicated. So those are interesting. If you're looking into finding those documents, highly suggest you find me on Facebook, or you can find me on Twitter. I actually suggest that you create your own Twitter and do your own search, though. Twitter, for me, has really opened my eyes these last couple of months. Between Google and Twitter, if I can't find something on Google, I can definitely find it on Twitter, and vice versa. And actually, if I can't find something on either of those two, then I'll go to DuckDuckGo, but that's less often. Twitter is honestly where you can find almost every single bit of information. So because of my transfer over to Twitter to get most of my news, I became reacquainted with Bitcoin. And for those of you who don't know what Bitcoin is a digital store of value, and it allows for borderless transfer without a third-party intermediary. So that means that if you've got a Bitcoin wallet in Brazil, and you give me your public key, I can send you money to your Bitcoin wallet using your public key. So, yeah, you can imagine how frustrating that might be to the powers that be, like the Federal Reserve or even the U.S. government that wants to track every transaction, every monetary transaction that happens. It's especially frustrating to a government like, say, a China, right? The Chinese Communist Party. They definitely want to track every single transaction. I'm not saying the American government doesn't. I just want to say that the American government, probably less so. I'm sure that somewhere the entities within our government that are connected to China, I'm absolutely sure that they would want to track payments. But what we've seen happen is the regulators for the U.S. financial system have recently approved the banks to be able to, what is the word that they used? The word, I forget what, custody, to hold custody. I guess these the financial sectors, the regulators have allowed banks in the U.S. to hold your Bitcoin for you. So essentially, they're going to get involved in cryptocurrency trading. So I don't know how much you know about cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, or altcoins as they call them. But if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be, if you plan on putting some of your fiat, some of your paper currency into Bitcoin or other digital currencies, my suggestion to you is to get your own physical ledger, your own cold storage wallet. And that means that you will hold a device at home that stores your private keys that has access to your funds on them. And the reason why I say that is because a couple of years ago, I had held I'd held a little bit of Ethereum and I held a little bit of Electroneum on a third party exchange. They're called exchanges. On a third party exchange called Cryptopia. And Cryptopia was a company of New Zealand. And recently, and I wasn't paying attention to all of my emails at the time, but apparently earlier this year or late last year, I forget when, that company Cryptopia was seized, was frozen. Their assets were frozen and seized by the government of New Zealand. And so anybody who did not have access to their funds after that point lost all their money. Now it was only about $800 for me. It wasn't, and there might be some people out there like $800 is a lot of money. And hey, trust me, it is. Just like 7 years ago, I was literally like $100 a day was like a godsend. So back then, yeah, I get it. Depending on your perspective, $800 can either be a lot or a little. But so I was holding my Electroneum and my Ethereum in Cryptopia, and Cryptopia was seized, and all the assets that they had in their possession were seized, and so therefore, I lost my Ethereum and I lost my Cryptopia. So the moral of the story is, if they're not your private keys, then they're not your private coins. So when you have a digital, a cryptocurrency wallet, so to speak, there are two keys. There's a private key that nobody should see and only you have access to, and then there is a public key that that through a weird verification system that I don't understand because I'm not a programmer, there is a public key that is able to attach to your private key without giving your private key information away. And so so when you hold your funds on your own physical ledger, on your own wallet, maybe it's, through an actual, memory holding device, like a memory card or a USB stick or something, or if you've bought something actually meant to do that, such as Ledger Nano X or Ledger Nano S, which is what I have. When you store your funds on a system like that, you're holding on to your private keys. So it doesn't matter what happens to the rest of the world. As long as you have your private keys, then you have your private coins. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before any of you jump off and try to understand how to buy Bitcoin or how to buy Ethereum or anything like that. You should definitely look into what's called cold storage, Ledger Nano X. For myself, I'm holding a bag of Bitcoin. They call it holding a bag. I'm holding a bag of Bitcoin. I'm holding a bag of XRP, Ripple. And I'm holding a very large bag of VeChain, VET, on the VeThor blockchain. VeChain is supposed to take over most of the supply chains in the world over the next few years. So if you're interested in doing that stuff, you should definitely connect to Twitter or to Google and do your own research on that. Not financial advice, guys. I'm not telling you to do anything with your money. What I am telling you to do is do your own research. And if you happen to buy any digital currencies, you should store them privately. You should not store them on a third-party exchange. I don't care if JP Morgan Chase says, hey, we have a Bitcoin wallet and we're just going to put it into your checking account. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. Remember, JP Morgan Chase wasn't even JP Morgan Chase like 20 years ago, right? They exchanged hands. It used to be like WAMU, wasn't it like Washington Mutual before or some shit? And they were only around for like 5 years. I don't know. But yeah, so it's interesting because the government is printing a lot of money right now. A lot of money. Trillions. And your president right now is not a conservative. He's not. He ran on the Republican ticket, but by no means is he conservative. This dude spends. They all spend. The Republicans spend. The Democrats spend. Anybody that's in the White House that sees these bills come through, they don't veto them. They just let them go. They sign them into law. So our government is going to continue to print. And one thing that we're seeing happen in the marketplace right now is something that they're calling a liquidity crisis. And that essentially means that some of these banks don't have enough money on hand to be able to cover all of their debts. So this is not the same as like a run on the banks. You know, a run on the banks is when everybody gets all worried and everybody runs to the ATM and tries to pull out all of their cash. That's not happening. What is happening is that some of these banks have issued loans for funds that they don't actually possess, and like in the midnight hours, in the candlelight hours of the night, while we're all sleeping, they are like begging and borrowing from each other. What is this? What is this called? This is called the repo market. So look into it. Repo market went on fire like last September 2019. There was a huge push for the repo market. So if you're interested, look into that. So what we're having now is a liquidity crisis where some of these banks are going to end up being insolvent, and that means that they've got more loans, more debt on the books than they actually have digits in the bank to cover. So, and this is going to be interesting to see the way it plays out, because without people making money like they used to, banks aren't going to be making money like they used to, because people aren't going to be able to pay their bills. Remember that banking, their number one business model is lending. They don't make money. Oh, that's a COVID cough. They don't make money by lending you $1 and you paying them back $1. They make money by lending you $1 and you paying back $1.50. You know, that 50 cents is their profit. That's a finance charge. So that's how these banks make money. And if they're not able to, if the people that they've loaned money out to are not able to pay off their bills, then the bank isn't able to loan out any more money, and the bank isn't able to pay their own bills. So as these mandates, these shutdowns, shelter in places continue, people are going to continue to not be able to pay their bills, and banks are going to continue to not be able to pay their bills, and we're going to see small businesses go under more than we've already seen, and we're going to start to see small banks go under more than we've already seen, and then we're going to start to see medium and eventually large banks are going to start to go under. The question is, can the government stimulate or inject enough liquidity into the market to keep all this from happening? And the answer is, I think they can. I think they can. But the problem is, when they do that, they are inflating the dollar. And they're inflating the dollar more than they ever have in the past. So essentially what that means is that there's more cash in the system, and if you increase the supply of cash, what happens is there's an oversupply, and that automatically means that the price of goods is going to continue to go up. So imagine, when we were younger, you used to be able to go to McDonald's and you get like a Happy Meal for like $1.99. I mean, let's not even go Happy Meal. Let's go like, I think it's the number one meal, the 2 cheeseburger meal. It used to be like $5, $6, right? And now when you go anywhere, I mean, your meal is automatically like $10. Put some fries on that, it's 11. Put a drink on that. You're now at 12, 13, shit, sometimes $15, just depending on where you're eating. And so what happened? Did the cost of the burger go up? Well, yeah, it did, but it didn't go up, multiple dollars. It might have gone up 10 cents a year, and that would equate to, over 20 years, that would equate to $2, right? So if the product didn't increase that much, then what happened? Why did the price increase? Well, the price increased because the value of the dollar is less today than it was yesterday, and that's called inflation. The value of a dollar relative to products in the marketplace, the value shrinks, and as the value of the dollar shrinks, the cost of the goods increase. Because, if a dollar today is worth $1.20 tomorrow, yeah, that makes sense. A dollar today is worth $1.20 tomorrow, then of course you're going to pay $1.20 for that same sandwich. So that's what's happening, and that's one of the biggest concerns is some of the stuff that I was fishing through last night was in regard to the financial crash of 2008, and a lot of what these people are saying, these experts are saying, is that 2020 is more like 2007 than it is 2008. So 2007, there was a bunch of warning signs. Apparently, 2007 was when we first lost the big bank. I think, I don't know, Lehman Brothers. Was it Bear Stearns? I don't remember. There was a big bank in 07 that first went under, right? And that's when the cards started to fall. But they didn't all fall until 2008. 2008 is when the financial crash happened, which resulted from things that happened in 07. So things that I have been reading online have said 2020 is like 2007. So that means we need to look forward and look into 2021 and try to understand what 2021 means in terms of financials and in terms of society and that sort of thing. So it really interesting stuff, and I encourage you to go out there and do your own research on this stuff. How far are we on this stream? Sorry, I just got to look. Oh, I'm 58 minutes in, and there's been no dropped frames. That's kind of cool. Anyway, so that's what's happening with the financial market. There's a big push for Bitcoin this last week. And then last night at like 11 o'clock, the whole bottom came out from underneath the cryptocurrencies. There was like $1 billion worth of liquidations across the entire cryptocurrency marketplace, which sent everything into the tank. So it's a really volatile marketplace if you plan on putting your money in there. Not financial advice, but for me, what's going to be appropriate for me, I will be putting my money into cryptocurrencies. I'm first going to transfer everything into Bitcoin as I get paid. So when I get paid, so remember, this is not financial advice for you. This is just me telling you what I'm going to be doing. So when I get paid, I'm going to make sure that all my bills are paid and make sure that I've got a good emergency fund of money in the bank that I don't need to exchange to spend. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is take the rest of my paychecks and drop them into Bitcoin. And then I'm going to hold them on my physical ledger, which is right here underneath the camera. You can't see it. And then from there, I'm going to continue to accumulate Bitcoin, because the way the future looks for the dollar right now is not great. So the dollar is probably going to be fine over the next 10 years, maybe 20 years. But I don't see very much. Let me just put it this way. And this is not financial advice for you. Do your own research. I'm going to put it this way. A long-term investment for me with a retirement account, a real 401k, can be more risky this day and age than putting your money into Bitcoin on a long-term plan, not a short-term. If you plan on putting your money into Bitcoin, or if I plan on putting my money into Bitcoin and then pulling it out, in 5 days, not a good strategy. Not a good strategy at all. But if I were to put it in and say, I'm not going to touch it until I'm 75, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Because by the time I'm 75, by the time you have aged 40 years, I don't care what age you are right now, it's likely that the dollar of the value is going to be maybe not even there. There may not even be a dollar come 2060, you know? So, and I don't even know if that's true. And that's why I'm glad I'm doing videos like this. So my future self can look back on my past self and laugh. By the way, we're going to lose Instagram here in 10 seconds. So Instagram, always welcome to join on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. All right? Talk to you guys later. Sorry, Instagram. We're just gonna share. And then oh, here, you guys can't even see what I'm doing. Let me turn real quick. This is Instagram. This is an iPad mini that looks at the producer screen. So there you go. That's where my Instagram lives. I guess we should open up another one real quick because I don't want to lose them. And Instagram, welcome back. It was only a couple of minutes. You can ask your Facebook friends if that's true. So the financial markets are kind of going crazy. The crypto market, the cryptocurrency market is kind of going crazy. And what I was just saying is that this is not financial advice, but for me, I feel like long-term investments in the dollar are more risky than long-term investments in Bitcoin. Let me help you understand. In 2009, let me back up. Remember that blockchain, Bitcoin, is all done on a decentralized public ledger. Decentralized means that there's not one person. The authority isn't centralized into one place. Decentralized means that there's a number of different people out there that have access to the same public ledger. What's a ledger? A ledger is like a sheet of paper where you say, yeah, your account holds $100 and you debited $5. Now you have $95 left. That's a ledger. And in the past, we've always had our banks as a third-party intermediary hold the ledger for us, right? So Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like it, especially the ones that they call DeFi, this is not a racist symbol, by the way. I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to be I'm trying to make a point. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, DeFi is called decentralized finance, and there are multiple DeFi coins out there. The original, the OG, is Bitcoin. And so now that I've built that for you, I want to make sure you understand that back in 2009, there was a transaction, and you can find it. I don't know how to look at the public ledger, but other people like on Twitter do. You can find the transaction where 10,000 Bitcoin were exchanged for 2 large pizzas. Okay? 2 large pizzas in 2009 were exchanged for 10,000 Bitcoin. It was a pizza delivery. And it exists. It's on the public blockchain. You can view it. You can see it. That $10,000, I'm sorry, that 10,000 Bitcoin, I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to type 10,000 times 11,000, because Bitcoin is worth 11,000 now. That is $110 million. $110 million. So somebody in 2009 paid $110 million in Bitcoin for 2 large pizzas. Do you think that they would like to redo that? Do you think they would rather starve that evening and keep those 10,000 Bitcoin? Yeah, I think so. So I'm just saying, for me, this is not financial advice to you, but for me, any long-term investment in the dollar is a little more risky than a long-term investment in, say, Bitcoin. Even though I understand how volatile the cryptocurrency marketplace is. There are some experts right now that are calling for Bitcoin to reach $28,000 in the near term, and over the next year, by the end of 2021, there is experts out there saying that Bitcoin is supposed to be worth $100,000. This is not financial advice, and I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. Okay. There's experts out there that expect Bitcoin to reach all the way to $1 million someday. Bitcoin is a capped limit, so there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Okay. The last Bitcoin block to be mined won't be mined until like 2135. And after that, there will be no more Bitcoin produced. 2135. No matter what any government says, no matter what, if there's a coronavirus 23, there will be no government entity out there that can print a Bitcoin. It doesn't work like that. It's a public, decentralized ledger that cannot be changed. It's called an immutable ledger, meaning you can't mute or change anything on it. So just looking at the fundamentals of what Bitcoin is, it seems more safe. Now, some people will say, well, Bitcoin eventually is going to go to zero. And I say, actually, it won't. And the reason why is because since its creation, I think it was created in 2008, maybe 2007, by Satoshi Nakamoto. He's a anonymous hacker. So Satoshi doesn't even exist. All of the wallets that were created from Bitcoin's inception, there's a good percentage of those wallets and those private keys that have been lost. So what I mean is that there's people out there that back in the day, like back in 2009, may have bought 20,000 Bitcoin and stored them on a physical wallet like the one that I have that I told you about in the last video. And they've lost them. So what does that mean? That means that their value stays, right? If you have a bunch of private keys, say, a quarter of the private keys were lost, well, that's like a quarter of Bitcoin's value, right? So that means that it could never, even if everybody were to sell off every single Bitcoin they had, it would reach a point to where it would hit the price valuation of whatever's left in the system that can't be exchanged. So it'll never go to zero. That's my point. But there have been a lot of people that have lost money on it. So be very, very careful. This is not financial advice, but be very, very careful if you're getting into it. Remember that when you trade and you buy something, even if it's stocks, say, for example, you bought 10 shares of Costco. I don't even know if Costco is publicly traded. I assume they are. But let's say that you bought 10 shares of Costco for $1 each, so it cost you $10. You buy 10 shares for $10, and you have 10 shares. When that price of those shares decrease in the future, for whatever reason, let's say, for example, there's a huge coronavirus outbreak in Costco, right? And they're like, shoot, we got to close 50% of our stores permanently. Like, oh shit. What do you think that would do to the cost of a share of Costco? Probably, maybe by half. It would reduce it by half. Let's say that it reduced the shares by half. So now the 10 shares that you own are only worth 50 cents a piece for a grand total of $5. If at that point, if you trade them and exchange them for $5, you have now realized your loss. But if you hold them and you wait, 20 years, let's say in 20 years, Costco recovers after their 50% shutdown and they triple the amount of facilities that they have, right? And that triples the value of your shares. If you then decide to sell your shares for $30, you've now realized a gain. So what I'm saying is people have lost a lot of money on Bitcoin by first purchasing and then selling it. If you had bought it and held it and did nothing but hold it this entire time without buying 2 large pizzas, let's say you didn't buy 2 large pizzas. Let's say you held on to 10,000 Bitcoin. You would literally have $110 million in your physical wallet right now. Not like in cash, obviously. You're going to have to go to an exchange, like an exchange called Binance, for example. It's the exchange I use. And you have to change those Bitcoins into cash. And then when you change them into cash, you're going to have to transfer that cash to your bank, like Chase. And then now it's on the government's ledger, because Chase has to, create a ledger that the government can see. And now the government knows that you've withdrawn some cash. So I'm just saying, and that, by the way, that goes to your income. So if you made any money off of a stock trade, or if you made any money off of a cryptocurrency trade, and then you transfer that stuff to cash, pulled the cash out, now it's part of your income. So just be careful. Once again, not financial advice. Something to look at is cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is the grandfather, and it will be there for a very long time, if not forever. It's like digital gold. And then there's a bunch of other ones. So you got to do your own research on that. I can't help you. And again, I don't want to. Because listen, if I told you all the steps, you're just going to do exactly what I told you to do, and then I'm going to be at fault if something happens, right? So I think it's more important for you to do your own research and find out the good, the bad, and the ugly on your own. So do that. Okay. Beyond that, I didn't have much else to share with you. I just wanted to jump on and tell you all where I've been. If you only caught this in the second hour, when I close this video, you can go back and watch the first hour. And I'll tell you all about my back injury, why I haven't been streaming live lately, and how I feel about masks and a coronavirus and the shutdowns. And then beyond that, I'll get back with you. I've got family coming down this week to hang out with me through next weekend. So I'll do my best to post things as I see them. But I don't envision myself going live. Can't have little kids running in and out of here, So anyway, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. Thanks for joining me. And I'll see y'all very soon. Talk to you later.